right, good evening, everyone. This is a public meeting of the School Board of the West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours in advance of the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors, at the Education Service Center, and at the West Bend Community Memorial Library. A copy was also sent to the Daily News, WIBD, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. And I'll ask our superintendent to confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Great, thank you. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and thanks to everyone who's watching online and who's in person with us today. We have a full agenda tonight, and so the next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. I would move to approve the agenda as it's presented. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll give that one to Nancy. Thank you. Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. All right, we've come to the public participation portion of our agenda, and we have a number of people. In fact, I count up from the number of common cards, we have 10 individuals who wish to approach the board. And so I will read a little bit about our public participation section just to familiarize yourself with this. We've come to the public participation portion of our agenda. Board Policy 187 prescribes the nature and procedures for this segment. I'm going to summarize the policy at this time, but copies of the policy are also available in the back of the room, and I urge you to familiarize yourself with the policy in its entirety. Residents of the district, parents of children in district schools, and employees of the district may participate. Participants desiring to address the board should obtain and complete a participant comment card near the entry and turn it over to the president prior to the meeting or when allowed by the president. Participants may comment concerning an agenda item or a non-agenda item. Each participant will be called to the podium and given 3 minutes to speak. The participant must state his or her name, address, and relation to the district. This information will appear in the minutes of the meeting. The board will not engage in debate concerning the remarks or take immediate action, but the board may refer the matter to the superintendent, to a committee, or take the remarks into consideration in future action. Board Policy 872 provides a formal process for citizen complaints, and Board Policy 520 provides a formal process for employee complaints. The board recommends use of these procedures as they guarantee a fair and timely response. So I will invite you in the order that I have the participant comment cards. First, Jody Allen. Welcome. So you'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and what I'll do is I'll keep a timer, and when we get to 3 minutes, I'll just note that you're at the 3 minutes, if that's all right. Okay. All right, so if you could please go ahead and just state your name, your address, and your relation to the district.
Okay. My name is Jody Allen. I live at 1111 Poplar Street in West Bend with a 95 zip code. I'm a former district employee. I'm a taxpayer, and I have a student who graduated in 2001. I'm here because I'm concerned after reading the operational and plan. Just one of my concerns is, well, I have two concerns. The first one is that so much of the ownership and what people have to do to keep our kids safe in the school is being put on the teachers and the staff. Having been a staff member from Head Start, elementary, middle school, East High School, and the alternative ed high school, I'm concerned that it's just one more thing that we're expecting teachers to continually do. This is stressful enough for them. If they have to do all this cleaning during passing times, what do you do with the science teachers who use that time to set up for the next class, or a social studies, or an English teacher in the middle schools that they have to do that? So we're expecting our teachers to do that and staff to do that. And at the same time, we're only suggesting that students wear masks. We're only suggesting that they wash their hands. We're only suggesting that they use hand sanitizer. A very, very no-brainer, simple way of doing it is just making everybody wear a mask. It's a no-brain No brainer. Nobody is saying you have to wear it for a long time, but just wear a mask. It would be so simple. The other point that I wanted to make after reading this, there's nothing in here. You do address health of the students and a little bit on mental health, but there's nothing in here that addresses an ongoing problem in this school district as well as others in the community of bullying by students who refuse to wear masks, who refuse to follow any of the guidelines on other students. There's no consequence, and that needs to be in here. Parents need to know that if they're sending their kids to school in masks, that they're not going to be bullied. They're not going to be bullied, and parents are not going to be bullying other teachers and students. So those two things need to be addressed in this. Also, I just think at this point, the way things are going with, in the last 7 days, 108.4% increase in cases in Washington County alone says we've got a problem, and a simple way to do that, solve that problem or cut it back, is to making masks a requirement. So please, please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And Superintendent, I'm guessing this probably is going to be a theme of several folks, which is great, and we appreciate the comments. You're going to be addressing some of this topic during your presentation, is that true?
Absolutely. So during the superintendent's report that follows public comment, and a lot in the audience, I said, hey, you might want to stick around for that part so they can get those updates and then continue to keep connected for feedback.
Great, thanks. So with that, I'll invite up Judy Stellmacher. Thank you for coming. And Judy, again, if you could state your name and your address and your relation to the district, and then I'll track the 3 minutes for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Judy Stellmacher. I live at 3476 Town Line Road, West Bend. I have lived in West Bend for 42 years. Our children graduated from the school district. And in addition, I was a former public health nurse for Washington County and worked for Children's Hospital of Wisconsin for 15 years in employee health. So I have a little experience tracking and mitigating infectious disease. My concern is also about what our plans are for the fall for our students. My greatest concerns are for the students that are too young to receive a vaccination. The Delta variant is now the predominant strain, and I can say from tracking basic information from all the news sources and from some of our experts in the field, it has changed the trajectory of the pandemic. You know, we're not in the same place that we were last May, so having different mitigation efforts, evaluating all and using all mitigation efforts, including masking, would be really recommended. So the Delta is much more aggressive than the original variant or the original strain was. Wearing masks is one of our best barriers to suppressing the spread of COVID-19. And more importantly than maybe other details that I'm bringing up is wearing masks buys us time. We need time for the younger kids to be eligible for vaccinations. And the longer we can prevent major outbreaks in our schools, the better for all our children. Local hospital systems agree, such as Froedtert and Children's, that we need multiple layers of measures to protect the kids. We have certainly a responsibility to educate children in our community, but we also have a responsibility to protect their health. And children are our highest priority. So please, I urge the school board to consider masking requirements as essential to protecting our children's health. Healthy children in school, in person, is what I think success looks like for the next school year, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Steve, I'm going to say Proust.
That's good enough.
All right. I'm sorry, you'll have an opportunity now to, if you could please state your name and your address and your relation to the district, and my apologies for mispronouncing your name.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah, Superintendent Wimmer, members of the board. My name is Steve Prust. I live here in West Bend at 1304 West Heights Court, and I'm a retired chemistry and biology teacher. I've been retired a few years now. I'd like to speak to you about the safety concerns of our children in the public schools, in particular here in West Bend. I believe our West Bend community wants to keep kids in school, but we also want to keep them as safe as possible and at the same time minimize the potential spread of this highly contagious virus. Returning to the virtual learning situation should be avoided at all costs. We all know the multitude of problems that came about as a result of kids staying home while trying to learn. The Center for Disease Control has acknowledged that the Delta variant we are currently dealing with is highly contagious and therefore puts the general population at greater risk. This particular variant seems to be attacking young people in numbers not seen in the earlier variants. Children are especially susceptible to this virus, with some showing symptoms, some children actually getting very sick, while others become asymptomatic and pass the virus to unsuspecting people. No one is affected equally. They're affected differently. In order to protect our children and keep them safe, it's essential, in my opinion, and the opinion of many, including the many healthcare facilities statewide, that masks must be worn while at school, regardless of vaccination status, not only by students but teachers as well. Perhaps when students are in a PE class or children in recess, they can wear masks. Masks can be removed, but only under special circumstances. This is not done to make their life miserable for the kids, but rather to keep them from experiencing the virus and from transmitting it to others as well. Another side benefit to wearing masks, highlighted by the CDC and other health officials, is the huge reduction in infectious diseases, which have traditionally kept children out of school for significant periods of time. We all must do our part to minimize the effects of this virus. It's critical that we follow the science. We must think of the greater good and not be selfish, thinking that such a move affects our individual rights as an American. Let's work together for the common good. Mask up until healthcare professionals indicate that our country has reached a point of near or herd immunity. We can all discard the mask and get back to living our lives without fear of spreading COVID. Masking up in school is not about my right to do as what I wish, but rather thinking about my fellow Americans in keeping him or her free from disease and therefore able to continue to learn, to thrive until we all return to normal. Masking is the best course of action for students and for the greater good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and next is Amy Solberg. Welcome, and again, if you could please state your name and your address and your relationship with the district.
Yes, hello. I'm Amy Solberg. I am at N170W21810 Rosewood Lane in Jackson. I am a parent in the school district and a taxpayer here. And I have lived here for 20 years, and I wrote to you today. Thank you very much. I received a response that was very helpful regarding the mask issue. And I understand from reading the plan that it's under consideration whether we're going to require masks to be worn in the schools, and whether you're going to take the CDC guidelines and apply them to the schools. And our county transmission is high. We turned red really quickly. As the rash was going up the country, I was like, oh man, I hope it doesn't hit us, and it did. It came up to our country, or into our county, and the kids, we know from last year, my son did virtual last year, and he did well. He's gonna be a senior this year. I don't want him virtual. You know, I want him to be in school, and I want all the kids to be in school because they miss out. There's a lot they miss out on when they're at home. And a simple, easy little mitigation effort like this is a good way to keep them in school. And it's also a good way to keep their parents at work. And as employers and as people who work for employers, I represent employers as an attorney. I want my clients to have their employees at work. And I know it'd be better for the entire economy if the employees are at work and not intermittently gone because their students have to leave. I know that there are 3 school districts in Kentucky who had to delay the start of their school district because their community transmission was too high. We don't want that to happen here, and we don't want it to happen intermittently when we don't expect it. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for the students, the teachers, the parents, the employers in our community. And leaving it up to the students invites the kind of bullying that we see in stores among adults, and it's the last thing the kids need. They have enough peer pressure to do things that aren't good for them. You know, we don't need them to be thinking about this all the time. We take that away. We just let them learn. We let them go to school and learn by, this is really not that big a deal. It's not ideal. I don't love it. And since I was vaccinated, I wasn't wearing it for a while until the Delta variant, hit here, and put it back on because I don't want to be part of the vector for continuing the spread of this thing. It's different from other viruses. It is. It's not the flu, unfortunately. And if we can get past it, then by this simple mitigation effort, I think we owe that to our students. And masks buy us time to get past it. So I urge you to consider that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. And next we have Mercedes Killen? Close? Oh, see, that's the second name I've not gotten right. Thank you. If you could please state your name, and then I'll know how to pronounce it, and your address in relation to the district.
My name is Mercedes Killeen, and I live at 1426 Sunnydale Circle in West Bend. My son is going to be starting kindergarten this year, and he actually should have started kindergarten last year. He started 4K in 2020, and he went home in March, and he only got 6 months of school. And so instead of deciding to put him into virtual school, which we decided was not probably ideal for a 5-year-old, we just held him back, making air quotes, for a year. And we don't want to do that again. I really appreciated the time I got to spend with my children, but there were moments when he said to me, "Mommy, you're my best friend." And that feels great until you realize what it means. He can't see other kids, and he needs to see other kids. And we want him in school, and we want him to stay there for the year. And in order to do that, I severely hope that we can have a mask requirement for the school year. I also shared some emails with the superintendent, and I very much appreciate her getting back to me and addressing the seriousness of the issue. The specific part of the draft of the operation plan that concerned me was this wording here. All other restrictive mitigation measures will be utilized prior to moving to any change for a recommendation for face coverings, and this may include classroom closure and moved to distance learning. I don't understand why those are our first choices before masks. As everyone else has mentioned, masking seems like a proactive measure that's simpler than closing schools. Nobody wants schools closed, as everyone else has already mentioned. We all want our children in school, and I think masks are the best way to go. So everything else has been said, so thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and next is Mark Allen. Well, Mark, if you could state your name, your address, and your relation to the district, please.
My name is Mark Allen, 1111 Poplar Street, 53095. I am a district resident. Also had a daughter graduate from West Bend High School, so used to be a parent. Well, I'm still a parent. I'm still a parent and proud of it. I actually have a couple of items in this is relative to the operating plan of 2021. The face coverings, I guess the problem is I look at this and the face covering section is about, oh, it's all about the kids. It's all about the kids and the staff and the teachers and the community. It's not all about the kids. And it's real simple, wear a mask. 100% behind that idea. The other thing is, if we allow kids to dictate that, what are we saying to the kid who requires other people to mask because they can't, for one reason or another, get vaccinated? They have some condition that keeps them from being vaccinated, like just being under 12. So masking is not about whether it's freedom for the kid. It's about freedom for everybody to continue to prosecute their life. I have an issue with the air filtration and ventilation section. Commercial grade air filtration, that's a garbage filler term. It doesn't mean anything. I would like this entire thing rewritten in terms of something that says, to this degree we filter. It starts out and it says, oh, we monitor the outside air temperature and make decisions about whether we're going to mix the air. That's done for cost. No other reason. I mean, that's done for cost and comfort, not because that provides a better environment. And the final issue is for students that are participating in the virtual, the school district provides access to a Chromebook, actually gives the student the Chromebook for the year. I think that's a great idea. Does the school district also make sure the student has internet? That would be my concern, because that's not addressed in here at all. So, thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. All right, next is Judy McCabe. I have that correct? You're sure? All right, very good, thank you. Next is is it Cahill? Great, please step on up. If you could state your name and your address and your relation to the district, please.
Name is Ro Cahill, live at 933 Hickory Street, up the street, and had two sons who graduated from high school. They're still my sons, though. But everyone has spoken so eloquently that, and I agree with all the mask mandates. I just want to say something personal. On March 9th of 2020, my husband was hospitalized, taken by ambulance to the hospital. He never came home. He died on July 7th, 2020, 4 months. During that time, hospitals were primarily on lockdown. It was impossible to go see him for most of that period. He was all alone. Now, nobody wants to go through that. Every day I suffer for him again. But we have ways now that we didn't have then that could help us stop this kind of thing. Masking is one of them. Vaccination is another. Now, a lot of the kids can't be vaccinated yet because they're too young, but they can be masked. And so I think this virus does not care what party we belong to. It doesn't care what skin color we are. It just wants to take us over, and we can stop it. Masks, vaccines will do it. When the vaccines come down to appropriate age, I hope that they will be given. Meanwhile, I think masking is essential. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, appreciate it. Next is Rachel. Oh, I'm gonna turn it to, how about Rachel? If you could, Rachel, if you could state your name and your address and your relation to the district, please. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Rachel Kafrel, and I have address is 930 Shepherd's Drive here in West Bend, and I have 3 children in the West Bend School District. All 3 of my children are too young to receive the COVID vaccine. Last year, I chose to do virtual for the first half of the school year to ensure the safety of my children, because I have one child that is prone to breathing issues. I'm hoping not to have to make that decision this year. Right now in Washington County, we have only 56% of adults that are vaccinated, which is much lower than even our neighboring county at 70%. Washington County is currently labeled as a county with a high transmission rate based on a 7-day average, and that's gone on for quite a while. The CDC recommends that anyone living in an area of high transmission rate, including those vaccinated, to wear a mask to help stop the spread. My children do not have a choice to be vaccinated, and neither do any of their classmates that they will be interacting with during the day. So unless the West Bend School District knows more than the CDC on safety measures to stop the spread, I do not understand why masks would not be a requirement for our children. Right now, the Delta variant is the dominant COVID infection in Wisconsin. It's twice as infectious as the original strain that we required masks for last year. The rate of transmission in children with the new strain is being shown to be similar to that in adults. The vaccine is currently showing it can protect against the strain, but again, the vaccine is not an option for my children or their classmates. Children's Hospital is recommending children unable to be vaccinated to wear masks indoors. So why would the West Bend School District know better than these doctors and not enforce it? West Bend School is responsible for teaching our children science and how to understand statistics. They are also responsible for my children's safety during the school day and should be basing that safety on science and these statistics. Protecting and educating our children is the highest priority, and we need to work together to make sure that we achieve that safety for our children. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. And let's see, the last card I have is from Amberly Bratcher. All right, Amberly, welcome. And if you could state your name and your address and your relation to the district, please.
Sure. My name is Amberly Bratcher. I am first and foremost mom to 2 West Bend school kids here. I've got a sophomore coming into West, graduate 2024. I've got a future first grader at Decorah that anytime I do the math of when she graduates makes me really depressed, so I don't know. So the other one seems not as bad. And I'm a community participant. Anybody who's ever had my oldest one can tell you that I have always been super involved in my schools. I love my teachers. I want my kids in school. Last year we did not get that, and all of us virtual parents, there's like a private club for us somewhere, but I don't want to be that. I am in full agreement that our kids need to be in school. My kids, my virtual kid did not do well at all, so we're going to be there. Now, I think the mask thing has been more than covered, and I kind of cheated, and I reached out to Jen today to where I actually feel pretty confident that come September 1, our children are going to wear masks. So I thoroughly agree with everything that's been said, but I'm not as concerned with that. My topic, I put urgency of masks. You know, the CDC said if you're inside, we need to wear these. I've got a 5th grade nephew that's supposed to go to orchestra camp next week. There's no masks being mandated for all of those kids. We just planned for him not to go. It's just one more thing we had to make that decision on. The week after, I have a sophomore that's got meet and greet at the high school. We're gonna go, even though she's not a freshman, because she's never been. She has 2 autoimmune disorders, of which we're treating currently with a chemotherapy. Do I take her? Not without this. So now she has to miss that too. And then I've got meet and greet the next day for my 1st grader who is so excited. Nobody has to wear this. And I don't know if you've ever been to a meet and greet in recent history, but social distancing isn't a thing. Like, it's like you set it up not to social distance. If nobody's wearing this, what do I do? Why do I have to do it? When we could just say, please wear this. Because this means everyone gets to come. You may not like it, but it doesn't hurt anybody to wear this. It can hurt people to not wear this. And then I think, do I really put my kid at risk of getting COVID and missing the first day of school so that she can drop off markers and see her class? Like, I already don't get to walk her to school and into her classroom this year, which I agree with. This is the closest thing I get. It would be really appreciative if I could stop balancing anxiety and fear and health of my children and just go back to enjoying the things we always did. So, I swore I wouldn't cry. I think it's her fault. She started it. But the last thing I will say, and I didn't plan to because I was going to cover masks, so that got hit. I don't know what the plan is for virtual kids this year. If we could really make sure there's a proactive plan to connect with them. We were very isolated and very alone last year with little support except from Jen Wimmer. Praise her again. but we didn't have anything. And so I hope that got expressed enough, but if it didn't, you got 3 weeks. Please make sure those families are supported and that they don't feel alone, because they already do, I assure you. So that's my plea for them. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to participate in public participation? I'm just going to pause for a second and just thank this group for respecting the process. You folks were, the feedback is impactful, and everyone kept to time, and we're very, I thought the comments were well directed, so thank you. For a group this large, I thought this was one of the most orderly public participations we've had, so thank you very much for that. And as we said before, Superintendent Wimmer, I think you're going to be addressing a number of these topics in your your portion of the presentation. The reason I say that is everyone here is free to stay for the rest of the meeting. You can leave when you want, but you may want to stick around at least for Superintendent Wimmer's part. So,
which is at the very end of the meeting.
Yeah, which is at the very end of the
I'm
meeting.
kidding,
No,
I'm kidding.
no. No, we'll take care of one item of business next, which is our consent agenda. And so we have a number of items to approve on the consent agenda. They include the minutes of the July 26, 2021 regular board meeting and executive session, disbursements posted to August 9, 2021, ratification of 4 certified staff contracts and 4 certified staff resignations, and there are no retirements this time around. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Paul. A second? Second, thanks, Nancy. That was Nancy, right?
That was me.
Thank you. Motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. All right, we are on to Superintendent Wimmer's report.
Thank you. First, before we dive into the hot topic, which is COVID and mitigation strategies and kind of that gearing up for school, I just wanted to take a moment and introduce, there she is, Dr. Jill Reese, who's joining us today. Is her first official day of work. She is our new Director of Elementary Learning, so we have a face and a name. So welcome to Dr. Jill Reese. As many of us heard, planning for a safe return for our students and staff is at the top of everyone's mind. And we know that, first and foremost, their safety is important. And again, our impact when we're putting 7,000 students into a community, 1,000 employees, we do impact the health of a full community. And you heard that reiterated this evening. So thank you for your feedback. Those who can't make a board meeting, email me, call me. What I've been doing is updating and our operation plan, and it's just a live document, so I'm highlighting as we have meetings. But I'd like to just express my gratitude on behalf of the staff for the recognition of their work, of what it really takes to keep schools open for in-person learning, the incredible learning curve that they had to do virtual learning, as well as the students and their families, and recognize our students and families for their resilience, because as you know, we had very strict mitigation measures in place last year and could not lift those until the very end. So what we are doing now, we anticipated being able to kind of start where we left off, and that is rapidly changing, as you heard from some of that feedback and as we keep you informed. Last week we had our meeting with the state, the Department of Health and Human Services, so it was just at the tail end of last week. We go into a call tomorrow morning with Children's Health. In fact, if you're interested, tonight at 7 p.m., the directors of Children's Health are holding a live Facebook event and taking questions from families, public, et cetera. Those are the same directors that we receive our feedback from, so I would encourage participation in that event. That's tonight at 7 p.m. So we go into that call tomorrow, and then we go into our public health. So we start translating everything into local data, local pieces. We'll go into regional superintendent meetings, and then further we'll go into a North Shore Athletic Conference meeting. All of those things are slated like dominoes to occur this week, and as we go into those, I'll add live pieces to our operational plan so people know what the recommendations are. I'll send something out to our families to alert all of them specifically to take another look Friday, but you can follow that live. One of the things that they're talking about, last year our numbers were great. Our transmission rate was low. We did not have significant issue. We had a lot of students out for quarantine, but thankfully not due to transmission. Our transmission stayed under 2%. We were able to kind of go less restrictive. Right now, our numbers, what I receive every week when you talk about the importance of statistics, the numbers that I receive are from the zip codes that we serve, so I can monitor those every week. Now, included in those zip codes would be public, private, parochial, homeschool, and just a little bit of neighboring communities. So it's not a perfect slice of just those going to our school district. The week prior, we had 4 positive cases in Washington County. Last week's student age only numbers were 17. So you're starting to see that acceleration. They're forecasting more acceleration. So while we had really nice daily dashboard last year, we'll do that right away this year so we can monitor tightly. We'll probably have to enter a period where we reset our data. So foreshadowing those more restrictive mitigation measures, multiple layers, including face coverings, to start and reset that data before we can do any kind of responsive shift in mitigation. And again, all of that comes before the board. All of that goes to our staff and our families as we foreshadow. So right now, we're working with our local public health as well, so that we can, again, really look at and isolate. And 2, for our public, know that we look at the classroom level every single day so that we can move swiftly if we need to. So I think the largest topic as we layer that in is certainly face coverings, because their language that they're using now is recommended. It's gone up to strongly recommended. And I think they're really going to leave it up to districts to use the word required, much like they did last year. So those are the conversations we're having this week. So I'll keep you informed. But I think, and I hope that our community knows that none of us are trying to be armchair epidemiologists in the board or in this. We're trying to keep our kids and staff safe and keep those instructional options open. And if that's what we need to do, I think we've proven that we're okay with taking that stance, but we're going to monitor things and we're going to be responsive. And if we can shift something, we will. But we're going to do it with partners in public health before we do so. So it's nothing where personal thoughts, opinions of board members or public are interfering. It's really taking our information from all the way through, whether it's CDC, then the Department of Health and Human Services, and local public health, along with other experts in the field. So any questions from the board as far as where we are in receiving information, synthesizing that, and kind of what we foreshadow?
I'm wondering if we could, I'm in favor of requiring masks due to the recent numbers that we've seen. However, in an effort to avoid this lasting longer than it has to, can we have some goals in place for when we would remove them? What kind of numbers would we need to see in order to remove them? Because I don't want to get in a situation where, say, there's one case in the whole district and everyone is wearing, continuing to wear masks. So I think it'll take less emotion. It'll take emotion out of the equation if we have that determined in advance.
I think some other critical pieces, obviously we want people to be safe. I don't think anyone's arguing that point. But I think and I preached this last year and I'm not gonna stop, so you just have to listen to it. The experience for many students last year was completely ruined. So as much as if you had a freshman or a kindergartner, if you had a senior last year, that was a horrible experience for a senior. They didn't get half of what they should have. And I understand it's all for public good, et cetera, but tell that to the 17-year-old kid who's crying in front of you about how their high school career was ruined, okay? So that's tough too. So when we're looking at that and we're looking at masks, I can get behind the mask, but what I cannot get behind is the constant, ridiculous quarantining of students for no reason. And the constant, that we know that many of those students never, ever had COVID, and they were stuck at home for 14 days, hating their life and not being very nice to their parents in the process. The other thing that I can't get behind is the absolute horrible way that we had to endure sports last year. The fact that we had kids breaking records and doing great things and their grandparents couldn't be in the stands to watch them was heartbreaking. So if the North Shore Conference, and I hope you're listening, can't get it together, then can we switch conferences and play people who want to play us? Because I'm done with this. This is ridiculous. I want that football stadium filled. If we have to wear masks, I don't care, but I don't want grandparents to have to watch their kid on TV unless they're sitting in Florida, and that's the way they want to watch it. But if I'm here in West Bend, I want to be at that stadium watching. Same for basketball, same for homecoming. I want there to be a parade. I don't want kids to have a ruined experience. So if we have to explain to kids that you have to wear masks to keep everyone safe, but then we're going to allow you to do the things that you earn and that you should have, then I'm for that. But you can't have both. I mean, this is ridiculous. We have to move forward at some point. I want people to be safe, but I am super concerned about the mental health of students and their families because their experiences have been ruined and they aren't getting that rite of passage that they deserve.
I'm going to chime in and echo a lot of what both of them said. I jotted down a couple notes as the speakers were talking. I am pro-mask when we start back at school with some restrictions, I guess. Some sort of regular check-in points or reevaluations or being tied to some sort of metric, like Tani said. You know, whether we re-examine it monthly and see where we're at. Because I'm really hoping, crossing my fingers and toes and everything, that this is not a year-long thing. Maybe we'll be peaking in fall and can start second semester new. And then same thing with what Nancy said. I am pro-mask if we can make the school year more, quote, normal. The activities that got canceled, the parades, the homecoming football game, all those things that kids are missing out on that's good for their mental health. If they're going to wear a mask, I want those things happening. So that's just my little feedback.
Thank you.
I guess my position on this is I feared we'd come to this point. I said it back in May that are we gonna start the fall back with masks? And at the time you said no. This is where we are. And like I said, I feared this would be the case, and I'm surprised our phones aren't blowing up with certain people in the community already getting uptight over the direction that this conversation's heading. But one of you made the comment that you know, we did the right thing last year from a safety perspective. And my argument then was we are responsible for 6,000 students and 1,000 employees. And as much as I personally have an opinion one way or the other, we have a responsibility to do the right thing for our students and our staff. And given where we are right now compared to what we knew in May, I am inclined to say, yes, we need to do the easy thing and do some masking, and we know that that isn't, you know, a 100% guarantee, but every little bit helps. And I'm with Tani that we need to find a way to put some metric or metrics, plural, to it. I'm not sure, you know, what is statistically meaningful, but could we say something, you know, to the effect of the burden rate for our district needs to be in the low category for 4 consecutive weeks. I don't know, for the medical people in the community, is 4 weeks way too long? Would 2 weeks be sufficient? But I don't want to do too quick, and then boom, we're right going back in the other direction again. And this kind of alludes to what I had suggested towards the end of last school year. Could we start at the elementary level, releasing the masks, but watching the quarantine rate in the buildings, and if they were to get over a certain point, then we bring them back into an active mitigation role type of thing. But I think that, yeah, if we can follow the data, as everybody's saying, and take the emotion out of this, that maybe it's next week, maybe it's the end of the school year. No, we know what charts to watch. That will be a better position for everybody in the community.
And I think just to speak to metrics, I think, again, everyone's learning, right? Science is unfolding before your very eyes all the time. And I think you saw, whether it was workplace, schools, et cetera, setting metrics based on larger outside factors and creating metrics that all of a sudden they couldn't meet. I think we've learned a lot. We can drill down to a classroom level, and we'll work with, on our call with Children's Health tomorrow, and public health around what would those look like at that classroom level. We had some metrics in place around how we could operate in our staffing and that kind of impact. So I'll ask those very questions, and also too, as to your point, Paul, around are there different rules for different ages, groups, et cetera, what from their perspective makes the most sense. Now, right now, they're gonna go just the opposite of what we're thinking, which is the younger are the most vulnerable with the Delta variant, and how that's spreading. But again, the questions need to be asked to formulate the plan long-term, so.
One thing I forgot, Jen, if you could also, this was a comment that we had last year. So I understand school is more of a required, I need to be there. But if I participate in football, for instance, that's not required. So, I mean, is there something that we can do for those kids? Because I also thought it was ridiculous that we forced them to exercise with masks on. So is there a thing that we can do with some kind of sign-off to say, hey, I'm participating, I'm okay with that, my parent signs off or something? I just think that when it's a not required activity and it's I want to do it, that makes it a little different to me. So I'd like to see that looked at as well.
When you're talking with Children's or Public Health, are you revisiting the quarantine guidelines and testing guidelines to get out of quarantines and that sort of thing?
Correct, all of
Okay.
that, which we had previously noted, just they're doing a reset. But I think one of the most important things that we can focus on is continuing to test, so that we're getting that information. As you said, some may not show symptoms, or some might have mild symptoms, and so just understanding what really is there. So they've talked about the importance of still continuing to get a test and not just sitting out, just so we know and can understand that spread. So,
Jen, can you remind me, is it true that, am I remembering correctly, that the number of positive cases total that we had district-wide last year was 193?
oh, I would have to look that up, but I know that our transmission was right around 1.7%.
Okay.
So we always stayed under 2 as far as cases coming in and out. So it depends on how you want to slice that data, and I can get that. Cases that were transmitted through school contact, general cases that were of our students enrolled in our schools. I think you can look at it a couple ways, so I can gather that.
Okay, I just think it's important for the people here, unless you're watching during the presentation when we had it last month, that we did do a very good job of not spreading. And on the other hand, we did not have any positive cases that occurred when we did contact tracing, and there were so many kids that did virtual school instead of in person because they were afraid of not being able to play their sports. And I think that was really a shame that these kids were not. I mean, the reason why I'm supporting requiring masks is because I want kids in school, and if we're gonna contact trace them out, then we're kind of defeating the purpose. So I want you to consult with the experts, but I really hope that, I think last year the contact tracing was important because vaccines were not available. Now they are. Everyone who wants to have one has had a chance to have one. I would really like to see contact tracing avoided if possible.
So what we still do, I think what you're talking about is the quarantine part. So we still do all the, yep, so let me just clarify. Yep, we're still contact tracing. We still are doing that every day. We'll still do that daily dashboard. What you're talking about is check in with the experts around the quarantine associated with the contact trace, that you're making sure that whatever opportunity we have to mitigate the number of days kids have to go out.
Although
Yeah.
if you test positive, you're definitely quarantining.
For sure. Any symptoms, you
Yeah,
got to stay
let's-
home for a while. But I think that's another key reminder, things that really helped us, and bless all families. But, having been a principal back in my day, sending kids to school with the sniffles or had a tummy ache the night before, I think one of the things that really also helped, and shouldn't be taken lightly, is diligence of families and our own staff. How many staff members did you know who were gonna just soldier through a day because they wanted to be there for their kids? And we keep pushing everyone and saying, you know what? If you have any symptoms of anything, please stay home, stop the spread of anything in school. So that diligence and kind of that reminding is also really important, so, okay.
Do you have any level of confidence in the neighboring school districts that we all follow suit and do the same thing?
I won't know until we have those conversations. So one meeting I have tomorrow is with 18 area districts, and then we'll go into a smaller group with Washington County. Now, the one caveat when you talk about by level, we do have a K-8 Union High School structure. So the Union High School, where, as you said, all of them are age level appropriate. If they wanted to seek vaccine, they might look at doing something different, but we're all, with the exception here and there, we're generally in the same conference, we're having the same conversations and receiving the same advice, and we have generally pretty similar numbers. So other than some outliers who stepped out and were outliers last year, I will probably be starting much the same, but I won't know until this week. And what I can add is, because you see it reported every so often in the paper, I can add in our own mitigation plan, hey, what's the neighbors doing? Just for context for people, I can add that.
If we go to a mask mandate, and neighboring districts don't, I can guarantee that those neighboring districts will let us know how great they are and how ridiculous we are for having a mask mandate, or vice versa. I appreciate everyone's comments tonight. And I hope you all can appreciate that there are a number of people in our community who would disagree with your comments tonight. I mean, just on any topic, that's always the case. And I know there was a Facebook group that organized last night or this morning and flooded all of our inboxes with emails, and obviously a lot of you were asked to come tonight. I can guarantee that after newspaper articles written about this tomorrow morning, that at our next meeting, another Facebook group will organize opposing masks. My point is, we're not going to make everybody happy, and this is it's a tough decision. You may think, well, it's easy, just make them all wear masks. Well, trust me, last May, we were flooded with emails throughout the end of the school year, just reaming us about, get the masks off the kids. It's time to get the masks off the kids. And so, I just hope you all appreciate that we're never going to make everybody happy. We are elected to serve, the opinions of our community, and I appreciate all of your opinions tonight. I'm sure we will get many more opinions in the next couple of weeks. I have a lot of confidence, not only in this board, but in our superintendent and all of our staff and teachers, that we will do the absolute best to keep our kids safe.
I just got one question about the process again, since probably going to be getting a lot of feedback in the next week to 2 weeks, and you outline the process the next 3 days, but what happens after the next 3 days? Is this a district decision, or is this a board decision in the coming
So,
weeks?
yep, following the same process that we used last year, was drafting plans, getting input, creating that opportunity. I would anticipate, given all the guidance that's coming this week, we're doing an updated draft. Board president and I already talked about kind of the next board meeting, shifting seats, and doing a formal presentation of this plan at our August meeting. But in the interim, what I'd be doing, much like last year, is having opportunities for in-person or virtual meetings for ongoing feedback, questions. Again, call me, email me, reach out, and then I'll do some of those sessions for feedback. Because the more eyes that we have on a plan, you know, the more opportunities that we can see about nuances and can clean up those. And the plan is for our families and for our staff, so making sure there's clarity around that is really important. So we would have those listening sessions, and again, a more formal presentation to the board at the next board meeting. And again, that still gives us, I think it's the 24th, gives us a little bit of time before school is formally in session for our students that first day.
I'll just say one more thing. I agree with Nancy. We need to open up our activities fully for participation, especially throughout the district. We know many are getting vaccinated that are 12 and older. We should have things open to them that they can participate in all activities. So I totally agree with a lot of the comments Nancy most eloquently made.
Thanks for everyone's comments. Any other comments or feedback?
No, as I said, just appreciate kind of the thoughtful questions as we get through the next couple days. Again, I'll be sending a larger update to families, and we'll post it. Look for that on Friday, by late Friday afternoon, just synthesizing everything. You can watch that document live. I'll make notes for those or add links to some of the information that we're getting or seeing as we move through those conversations. And then I'll lay out, as Kurt said, kind of a timeline for the days ahead so people know exactly what that process is leading up to the first days.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Then, unless there are objections, we'll move on to the next agenda item. So thank you for those of us who joined. Again, you are free to stay for the entire meeting. If you choose to depart, we will not be offended. All right. We'll give these folks a moment to clear the room here.
Let's talk about Pepsi and Coca-Cola.
All right.
Pepsi versus Coke. This is going to be a battle. Pepsi versus Coke.
All right. Okay. I think we are set then for our next agenda item. We're on to the action items in our agenda. So the first item is the high school's beverage contract recommendation. And Ralph Schloss and Aaron Felber, I think, are going to co-present this, if I understand correctly.
And Andy will open it up. Yep.
All right. Please step forward. Good evening.
Don't realize how happy I am to be here. Thanks for having me tonight. I will be very brief because I need at least an hour and a half for the next agenda item. Get the timer going. It's very typical for school districts to have a beverage agreement, particularly at the high school, sometimes at all secondary schools. We're no exception to that. Over the last 7 years, I think it is now, we've had a contract with Pepsi. It was time to go out for an RFP, figure out what we needed to do, and just give a fresh start as to how they could bring this in. It is governed in some senses by the USDA, so 30 minutes after the school bell and then until midnight. That's really when we have a window to provide things that are outside of a nutritional value window that isn't in compliance, but yet at the same time we do have an option for some of the protein and the sports drinks and some of the things like that that are generally athletic related. It does bring some money in. We are allowed, and it's through concessions at some of our events, as well as the actual vending units. So Aaron was on point for this project. I know Ralph was involved. Several of us were with the rating matrix. Very similar process, actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with what we utilized for the school bus selection. So I'm going to turn it over to them. If you guys need anything else, please jump in.
No, like Andy mentioned, over the years, I've been at the West Bend High Schools for a number of years, and we've worked with different beverage companies. We've been working with Pepsi the last 7 years. Before that, we worked with Coke, but we thought it was time to revisit where we were, and we went to the RFP. We sent out that RFP to different companies. There were at least 3 that we sent the RFP to. that responded to us. One opted not to participate in the process, but we did hear back from 2 of them. We asked for a sealed bid. And on the date that we had requested, they submitted their proposals. And we went through a process whereby you can see up on the screen, we took a look at different categories in quality, performance, cost, customer support, product variety, and sponsorship dollars. What has changed over the years, it used to be Mountain Dew would just fly out of the machines, and we didn't sell anything but Mountain Dew. But nowadays, kids drink water, they drink energy drinks, sports drinks. So, for example, Coke, their energy drink of choice is Powerade, and Pepsi has Gatorade. So we took a look at these different categories. We rated them, we scored them, I should say, and then we came up with a final total for each. I know Aaron and I, Andy, John Graff, and several other people did the scoring. We also followed up with different school districts and spoke to different superintendents and principals who worked with both of these companies and asked them for their opinion on these various categories as well. So turn it over to Aaron.
Since you mentioned specific things, I hope it's okay for me to interrupt you here.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you say energy drinks, do you really
Sports
mean
drinks.
sports drinks?
Sports
Okay,
drinks.
not like Monsters and,
No.
okay.
No,
Okay.
it's just a sports drink.
Okay, I really do
Not
think.
energy drinks, no, we're not.
Okay, thank
We're not
you.
loading up kids on all that sugar and stuff like
Okay, great, thank you.
caffeine.
Good question.
So, I think the biggest selling point is that it came down to Pepsi will offer us 30% of all vending items that are purchased, and Coke, it was 20%, and there was no wiggle room on that. And then all of the products from Pepsi happen to cost less upfront than the products from Coke. And really the student input is they love Gatorade more than Powerade. And so some of the items that they would provide for us would be the Gatorade sideline package. So for a lot of, our big Jamie Block cross-country meets or the sprawl volleyball, football, we can have the big jugs of Gatorade provided for our students. So we are asking for you to approve Pepsi as our beverage, or going into a 3-year beverage contract with Pepsi as our provider.
I'll make that motion, but I also just have a quick comment. Being a sponsorship girl from way back, you should make sponsorship a little stronger in your matrix there, because that's a critical piece, quite honestly. I'm happy to see you'll be making more money. I agree with, what the kids also like to drink is important, because then you'll sell more. But, the sponsorship piece is critical, and I would push them for more if you could in the future.
Well, at one time, they were a lot more generous, to be honest with you. When we went to Coke last time, they offered us a lot more dollars than they did this time, significantly more. But they were selling more soda at the time out of their machines. And with the USDA guidelines, limiting, they're on timers now, whereas those soda machines used to be on 24/7, 365. So they're not getting as much profit, we're not getting as much kickback.
But I did talk to several athletic directors and find out some of the schools who are getting a lot more money from these companies. So there are definitely incentives for the future of why do you give Brookfield Central this and why are you giving us this? Which they come down to, honestly, looking at our volume of sales in the past, and they haven't been big. And so now, if we really, push this and take initiative and put our efforts towards monitoring it, I think in the future, we'll be able to see more growth. And that's one thing, if you look at, it says the growth rebate, Pepsi will provide an annual growth rebate of $2 on all cases over 900 cases. That wasn't in the original bid, and they ended up adding that, because I said, what's the incentive if you're just gonna cap us at this for 900? Like, why would we wanna sell more than 900? So.
Good job. Sounds like you did some great negotiating. So again, I'll make a motion to accept the beverage recommendation with Pepsi as presented, allowing administration the ability to enter into a 3-year agreement with 2 additional 1-year extensions.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Joel. Motion and second to approve the contract. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
And next is the contract approval with Go Right Way. Mr. Sarno.
Thank you again for the opportunity. Where board policy allows, let me make sure I find it here. Board policy allows entering into agreements by the superintendent as well as my position. The size and the scope of this $2+ million per year, 5-year contract is what we're looking at. Where we have goals, there's things that we've included. This is an extension of the April 26th decision by the board, by the school board, to move forward with Right Way. So we're at a point where we wanted to bring it forward, just make sure that we're covering everything. So when I take a look at the goals, coming up with an agreement that allows, it's very important service. Quite often, this is the first, a school bus driver is the first non-family member that a couple thousand of our students see every day. We want to make sure that we're getting quality service, and this contract allows that to happen. Meeting the terms that are a part of an RFP process. So what we originally issued back in the spring is now coming forward in the contract, and that we're still consistent with those terms. Making sure that what was discussed at the board meeting in April 26th is still consistent with where we are right now. We want to be financially responsible to our organization, as well as being fair with Right Way. They're a valuable partner. I even think of somebody like the bank. The bank is an important relationship that we have, but we could probably switch banks in a couple weeks if we needed to. There's a big investment that's involved in this. We have 35 buses that are over $100,000 each, building a new terminal within our community. So we just want to make sure that we're doing this right. So being financially responsible, and then not only that, and this is going to be one of the big things that I want to make sure with the language that we have, is anticipating what could happen over the next 5 years. So even talking about masks and the variants that are happening now, how will that impact education here, not just this year, but over the next few years? So as we've taken a look, we've got a 3-year plus a 2-year extension. We've got an annual increase that's tied to the CPI. The rates, they align with the RFP and Go Right Way's submission. Gas is tied to a local matrix, so we have that all determined if gas prices go up exceedingly, because we don't want to create too much of a financial hardship, yet at the same time we have that reciprocated where if gas prices go down, we are given money back. The payment terms, vehicle and driver standards, those are all within this 14-page document. Insurance and indemnification, so we can hold each other harmless in case some bad stuff happens, and even termination clause, so we can work through that. The one piece that I didn't touch on yet, one of the last pieces that's been included, is what happens if we go below our 176 days. So some type of closure, again, short-term, long-term. So we've taken a look at that. We've reached out to other school districts that have Right Way contracts, making sure that, again, we're protecting ourselves, but yet at the same time that we know that there's overhead and the availability that if we need them to do something or we want them to keep staff onboarded for a certain period of time, we have that flexibility as well.
Can you speak to a couple of questions that I have? So in the situation where they're not living up to the contract, for instance, sorry, we don't have anybody to drive that volleyball bus. What do we do? What's our?
So that's not in the contract. We did originally have a penalty, and districts that have enforced that or had language like that have now removed it. So I'm only aware of one district that has some type of penalty language where they're not showing up for the start of the school day on time, let alone the volleyball team. So instructional and co-curricular, what we're trying to do is get them to incentivize, work together, create a partnership, so we can try to avoid that.
No, I understand that, but I mean, what's our remedy if they don't do their job?
If they don't do their job, we can come to an agreement where we would part ways.
But it's not in this agreement.
There is a termination clause that's in here that we have to go through certain steps to make that happen. It has to be extreme enough.
Right, but that's like kind of ambiguous. So what is extreme enough to warrant that?
If it's a volleyball bus that isn't fulfilled and we have to make other arrangements, that would not be grounds.
Well, clearly I get that, Andy, but I'm talking about how many times do they have to not fulfill their end of the deal before we determine that that's significant?
That's not defined in here.
So what I'm trying to ask you is, in your mind, how many times do they not fulfill their obligation before we have to remedy?
I would want to work with the athletic directors as well as the other administrators and come up with something where we've determined that it's excessive. So I don't have a number of times in my head at this point in time.
So I would like to see administration look at that, because obviously we've been in that position before, so that's concerning to me. I'm not suggesting that that will happen with Right Way, but I don't want to see us in a situation that we see fellow districts in, i.e. Milwaukee, where they don't have what they need to basically provide students a way to and from school. I'm not even just talking about a volleyball game, I'm talking about getting here daily. And then my other question is, I understand the depot that they are doing is not going to be completed in time for school. So can you speak to the fact that I believe some buses will be parked on property, and what are we doing about parking spaces that will be lost?
Yep. So generally in the fall, there's an excess of parking at the site that they're going to be. So it's adjacent. It's on the west side of the high school. They're going to be occupying the northwest corner of that. There'll still be entrance and exit to that parking lot, but they're going to be utilizing probably about 100 spaces for about 6 to 8 weeks. So in the fall, generally sophomores have yet to receive their licenses and cars, and so there is parking that's available in the fall.
So we have some kind of study that shows that we actually have those spaces available every fall?
I don't think there's a study. I think it's been just historical knowledge of that.
Well, what I want to avoid are 40 kids and 400 parents here to tell me their kid doesn't have a parking spot in fall. So I guess, Mr. Slash, can you speak to what does the parking lot look like in fall? Is this going to cause a problem, or Superintendent, anyone?
We do keep. John, come up.
Our bookkeeper does have data on how many permits we sell each month. Okay, we've got historical data. There should be room, as Andy mentioned. It will be tight, but we do also have overflow parking across the street and it's not ideal. And we probably won't have to use it, but if we did, kids could park across the street where the soccer and baseball diamond are. Typically, kids don't use that space because we have enough room, on our main campus. Okay, but it'll be tight, but we'll have room.
Ralph, could you not put the buses over on the soccer parking lot?
We explored that as well, and so we believe that there would be sufficient space at that site if there was no other parking, and we didn't want to create a hardship for the soccer participants.
So what are the timeframes when the buses are going to be there? Obviously, late evening.
Yep. So
Middle day as well?
There could be some during the middle of the day. Some of the drivers are allowed to take their vehicles because of the routes that they have. So some of the Jackson routes, they'll start out in the morning, and that bus may not show up again until, upwards of 5:30, 6 o'clock. So they're going to be vacated by 6 a.m. Or even a few minutes before when they start their routes. The majority of them would not show up again until after 5 o'clock.
After 5, but then you might still have a soccer match going on, and that parking lot would be full, so, and then you get into Fridays with big football games, and the parking lot's potentially full. What's the ETA on the terminal completion?
Well, the terminal completion is not going to be until nearly Christmas. So what they're hoping is to get a variance from the city, and they've already been given verbal permission to do this, is to get the blacktop completed. They have to fence off their construction area, and they'll be able to use their blacktop area for parking once that's complete.
And what would that time frame
That's
be?
anticipated to be in October. So we're looking at about the first 6 to 8 weeks of school. Additionally, I apologize, go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to say, so are you going to be coning off or marking the parking lot? Like, how will a kid who just got their license know I shouldn't park there?
That's what I was just going to share. So we will have, I don't want to call it industrial barricades. In fact, they might be a little bit flexible. So it will be well marked. I'd say a little bit heavier duty than coned off.
Jersey barriers.
Something like that. And so, in fact, I think we're a little bit more generous with the space that they need. If we start to hear, and I think this is something that we can monitor with Linda Leisner, we could adjust that space and make it tighter. I think that's highly possible if our space becomes tight. So these are not going to be the cement barriers to separate interstate travel Yeah. They're not going to be Jersey. I didn't know what a Jersey barrier was. So we're going to be going a little bit lighter than that, so it could be flexible in the event that we knew that we were getting tighter than we are comfortable with.
So Andy, how does this contract speak to, given the 3-year term with 2 options to extend of a year apiece, giving our declining enrollment, you mentioned 35 buses. What happens if in year 3, year 4, our enrollment is such that the routes can be reconfigured and we need something less than 35 buses? This is flexible to bring us.
Exactly. The equipment is flexible. That will meet our enrollment needs. In fact, I think if we told them tomorrow we needed 3 less routes, they would be okay with that. So that this literally determines the route rates, not the number of buses of the routes that are done annually.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
I would like to bring it back to what Nancy was talking about. Can we find out what Right Way's policy is? Because it's most likely a driver that would be a no-show, and they have some sort of performance policy, so many strikes, or, you know, what triggers that not happening again on their end might help us establish an agreement with them of what is going to be acceptable.
I'd be happy to ask that.
Yeah, thanks.
Just got a couple comments. Seems to be a topic evening, but I heard from some bus drivers that are not coming back to Right Way. So I would just, who's ever overseeing kind of the day-to-day ramp up, that I think they're still in need of bus drivers, and I don't know if they're doing that good a job of marketing it. Here's from, because I don't see billboards, they're looking for it. They probably are, but I'm just saying, knowing from some bus drivers that aren't coming back, especially now hearing like mask mandates, if you're going to have the bus drivers enforce masks on buses, that might affect the bus drivers coming back as well, which I don't think they should be the enforcement police. So I just thought I'd point that out from what maybe I'm hearing from the community and community of bus drivers, and just hopefully we can stay on top of that so there's not a problem at the start of school.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the best thing with the CDLs. I think just do as good of a job as possible to recruit people, and so we will work on that. In fact, we had a meeting last week that we've got a 1-page summary, just a quick reference. If you'd like to get your CDL, here's about the 4 steps you have to go through, where you need to go, how we can get some training initiated. I think we've even made a commitment in the past to allow for staff that would like to get that they need to step out of their position for a day or 2 to get to receive the training, that we would make sure that their position was covered and things like that. So we'll continue to do what we can to help with that. We do have signage at every building. I think we've even posted things on Facebook a couple times. Again, it's one of those partnerships that however we can help them, we're helping ourselves. So we'll make sure that we continue that through the start of school.
Great. Any other questions for Andy?
I'll move to accept the contract with Go Right Way for student transportation as presented.
Second.
Motion and second to accept the contract with Go Right Way. Any final discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
And
it.
I'd be happy to, as well as we start the school year, and however that is, just make sure that either through the weekly updates, keep you informed about where we are with fulfilling our riderships in those numbers. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. So we have a pair of action items related to policies, and Superintendent Wimmer will walk us through that. The first is the second reading of policies recommended for removal.
So just a reminder that with unanimous approval of the full board, which we have here this evening, you can take action on a second reading, which this is. The first slate of policies are ones recommended for removal. They were outdated, their language has been pushed into new language, etc. So if the board would so choose, we could have a motion to approve the removal of the policies as listed, or if anyone would like one set aside for separate consideration, it is available for action this evening. I know that as we went through them, there was limited discussion on the removal items. So again, however the board should choose to act this evening.
Any questions or thoughts?
I watched the 2-hour discussion on this when I was out of town. I did come back in town, and I appreciate all my board colleagues taking the time to go through the first reading. Sorry I wasn't here for that, but I did come home and watch it, and appreciate the discussion on that. Unless anybody wants to pull one of these out separately, I intend to make a motion to do them all together.
Any objections?
And if not, then I will move to remove the policies listed in our board docs on this agenda item.
And I would second. Motion and second to recommend removal of the policies as presented. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, and then on to the second reading of policies in the 100 and 200 series.
So the next set is revisions. The revisions could be as simple as the number, the title, some of the content. We talked through each one at length last time. You have links in front of you, and I'm sure have reviewed. So this first slate, the 113 through 188, again, that was revised language. The following, the 200 series, the two listed were reviewed, but we had no revisions, but we'd seek an update so that as we just show that it was part of the update and considered by the board. What I would not include in that list for revision is what was old 188. Recall that was one we knew would have lengthy discussion in committee. That was the high school configuration review process. We have a new 188 in alignment. What we could do is simply renumber at this, but there's a couple numbering options for discussion for the board. So I would recommend that we bring this one back in its number, unless the board would like otherwise, but we would include that separately. WASB's recommendation for consideration on that number of that policy, you could look at it in the 112 series, which when you look at WASB's numbering convention, that's looking at pieces around shared decision-making and strategic planning. So you could consider it nested within strategic planning, and you could choose to put it labeled as 112.3 as continuous improvement and a piece under that, which makes it 112.31, or its own item as 112.4. Or the other series that it made the most sense to go into was in the 900 series, which is around facilities. So that's just a discussion for the board around the new numbering of that policy. So again, the revised were the list as presented. The two that were reviewed, no revisions, but we would want that updated. And then the one that we're sending back to committee and need to look at a new number for that. So again, if the board would like to make a motion for the slate for the revisions and the review to update that review date, if you want anything set aside separately,
So
any of those are
you would
options.
recommend not taking any action on 188? Just, we'll take that back to committee and talk about a renumber at that point?
I would recommend that to have, but again, soliciting input from board members this evening to inform the committee. We can keep it as old 188, so it's still there, it's still present, and there's not a conflict. But we don't have to declare the new number until we meet, have a discussion, and bring it back for the third time. It's not substantial. It would come back right away for the third reading for the renumbering portion, but we know we still have work to do around that policy.
Any thoughts on that number? Should it be in continuous improvement in the 112 area or facilities in 923?
I think 923 makes the most sense because it's
Facilities
related.
I agree.
I see heads shaking, so we'll take that as kind of a recommendation back to committee.
Any additional discussions on the remainder of the policies? Hearing none, I'd recommend adoption of the revisions to the policies as outlined and updating the review date for policies 224 and 225.1.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the policies and update the review date. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. All right. We're on to discussion items, and the next item is agenda and resolutions for the September 27th, 2021 annual meeting and budget hearing. And Mr. Sarno, I think, is going to walk us through that item. All right.
Thank you for your time. One more agenda item. I'm going to ask for Mr. Harder's help. Yeah.
Is your microphone on, Andy, by chance?
It is.
Okay, that's
it's
fine.
a little bit lighter than I've been used to.
No worries.
In front of us, in its anticipation, the annual meeting as well as the budget hearing is not too far away, towards the end of next month. And as is typical, bringing forward the resolutions. We have 4 resolutions for discussion at that evening. Some of them are binding, some of them are not, but just wanted to bring forward the agenda as well as the resolutions. Start off with a registration. We have a public hearing. Generally, it lasts about a half an hour. That's how much time we've allowed for it in the past. And if we talk too much longer, I would hope that that would be due to some nice discussion with the community. But generally speaking, should take about a half an hour to present that financial information. There's protocol around that. We have to post it in the newspaper prior to the meeting, protocol related to that. 7 o'clock, then we would adjourn. 7 o'clock, we would start our annual meeting, which is really kind of a state of the district. Superintendent Wimmer would jump in, share some information, and then we'd go into the 4 resolutions. First resolution, tax levy, and I will be filling these in. We're calculating final numbers. To this point, we still have estimates, calculated estimates, but we will soon be filling in these numbers where they would be populated in anticipation of the meeting. But this is truly what we would be levying, and it would relate to the taxation rate. Second resolution, I do see a typo. I apologize for that. Second resolution is the disposal of assets, and so basically what it says is the district has the authorization, or the superintendent has the authorization to dispose of assets with a value of $5,000. If it's more than that, we would come to the board for approval. So no change. I think that's been pretty status quo for a number of years. Resolution number 3 is compensation. So I've left this, and I did bring this forward, I think at the second meeting in August last year, but that has been $2,500 for a board member as well as $2,600 for our officers. That's been unchanged since 2014-15. I'd be happy to fill those in. Again, this is meant to be discussion. I plan on bringing this forward on the 23rd for your action to support those these 4 resolutions being brought forward in September. So again, open for discussion tonight to make sure that we can bring action forward 2 weeks from now. And then additionally, a second part of resolution number 3 talks about your compensation when you're acting on the district's behalf, making sure with mileage and meal allowances and whatnot.
And I'll just point out, like I do often here, on the compensation of school board compared to city council, compared to the Board of Supervisors of Washington County. The school board rate of pay is probably half of the city council and is roughly maybe a third, roughly if I'm rounding, of the Washington County supervisors. So we're very conscious of our pay. A lot of it is contributed back into the district, and I just say that is, I'm very proud of my board members for keeping this the same and being so generous with the community and their time, because it has been a lot of time, more than you would think, to participate on the board. So I just want to thank all our supervisors, and we're working at a discount, a very deep discount.
I don't know if it meets the minimum wage requirements if you, yeah, when you tally it all up. But Thank you, though. Noted.
No, I think unless there's other feedback that you hear, I think I'd be in favor of keeping the pay the same as it is. I think running for school board, it's, you know, there is that pay, but it's more so about the work that you get to do. So, but certainly open to other input from the other members. But I'm assuming silence means let's go ahead and keep it the way it is.
I think I saw just about everybody nod, so
Okay.
thank you for that feedback. Fourth resolution, and this is one where maybe a little bit more discussion even than the third resolution, is typically we've, at this annual meeting that's coming up on September 27th, elected to determine the next year's annual meeting date. And I believe with policy revision, or the proposed policy revision, because this would truly be brought forward for action by the constituents, by our residents on the 27th, is moving it so you guys, the school board, would determine the annual meeting date, most likely late spring, early summer, certainly plenty of notice, but determining that. What that does is allows us the flexibility where if it's a state biennial budget and we don't quite have the information yet, we may wish to have it in September. Whereas the middle of a state budget, we know the information, it might be a little bit more advantageous. Might go with an initiative where the state of the district, it'd be important to have it a little bit earlier, so it allows us the flexibility rather than tying us to that particular date that was made 12 months or 363 days before the next meeting. So usually it's that last Monday in September, but if you'd be open to discussion about that, I'd be happy to listen.
So I'm in favor of this resolution. I think as we had talked about it, perhaps at a prior meeting, you know, the idea that something unforeseen could happen that would cause us to need to reschedule this meeting. The way I would understand it would work is if the voters have to do it, then we would have to convene them again to reschedule the meeting. That seems fairly awkward, and I think the school board would be able to do so and kind of adapt the date as necessary. So I'm in favor of it. I'm in favor of how it reads. My question is it your intent that once we have, if this resolution would pass, do we have to take up the resolution again each year, or is this more of a permanent, we set it and then it goes into motion from that point forward?
So what we do, the policy that we have approved through you, you keep that in perpetuity, that on that date, that's when the electors approved it. At any time, just as he's doing right now, you could put that back on and rescind that approval, but it just stays embedded in that policy language in perpetuity until it's rescinded. So you don't have to constantly attend to the policy or this piece.
Yep, and I'm supportive of that. My point would be that perhaps it says resolution number 4 titled 2022-23 annual meeting date. We may want to change that because it sounds like that would apply to all future meeting dates. So we could say something like 22-23 and future annual meeting dates or something of that sort. I would just recommend retitling it, that's all.
Thank you. I will make that note.
Yep, other questions or comments on the annual meeting date resolution? Okay. Any other items for
That's the guidance I
feedback?
needed. We'll come forward with those changes in 2 weeks, but thank you for your time tonight.
Great. Thank you for yours. All right. We're on to a report, annual curriculum plan, and Laura Jackson will walk us through that. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight, we're here to talk about the annual curriculum plan. At the curriculum committee meeting in June, the curriculum committee spent some time going through a detailed overview of the curriculum work going on in the system. And for this upcoming school year, what you have before you is a highlight of the curriculum revision work that will occur during the school year. So we'll be looking very closely at the art program that we have in place for our students. We will be reviewing our human growth and development curriculum and looking to make any revisions to that as well. And we'll be conducting our math audit. So for For example, the math curriculum has been in place. We've completed 6 years with our Bridges math curriculum, and this year we'll take some time to review where are we with implementation? What revisions have we made along the way? What are we still implementing with complete fidelity across the system? And what are our results? And as we look at all of those pieces, that will guide our future decision-making on our math curriculum. We'll be doing that with our math curriculum K-12. We will also be working with our physical education department. Our physical education department has really taken a close look at what they're doing at each level, and we want to look at that across the board as a K-12 system in physical education, and we're going to spend some time this year doing that. World language if you recall last year, you approved level 6, and that being the 6th year of world language courses. When we initially launched our world language program beginning in 5th grade, we added a roll up so that would roll up with our students so that until our students were old enough and had enough years in school to add on the 6th course. That has been completed, and we want to conduct an overall review of our world language program, our participation, and the revisions that we've made and the impact of those revisions. You may remember that we've used the phrase ProQuest here. ProQuest is a family and consumer science program that allows our culinary students to earn a ProQuest certification. And in the past, we foreshadowed that this was coming, and the program, the ProQuest version that we have, will be coming to a close. And so we'll need to revisit that and re-up that or look at a different certification. That's the industry standard, so I don't see us varying from that. But we'll need to take a close look at that this year so that we are prepared next year for the implementation of the new ProQuest certification program. Additionally, within our career and technical education program, Tim Harder has been working to look at different programs of study so that as our students are working through their high school career in our CTE programming, they are able to connect with either university or our technical colleges in order to earn classes that serve them both as high school students as well as preparing them for their technical college experience or their four-year college experience. And so the Career and Technical Ed department will be looking closely at what programs of study they're going to be able to offer in the future and building that structure so that our students have additional opportunities at the high school level to earn some advanced credits and work towards, again, their college and career goals. Within the annual curriculum plan, we also look at the course overview documents. Course overview documents are linked up on our website, and you will remember we've utilized Build Your Own Curriculum, or BYOC, as our storehouse for our course overview documents. And that is how our public would be able to access them on our website. Annually, the board approves the course overview documents. Changes to those course overview documents are made by this time and then approved by the board as we move into the next year. If you recall, there was one year where we took a closer look at social studies at the 7th grade level and mid-year made some revisions to that. Those revisions were brought forward to the board mid-year at that point. So our course overview documents that were formerly housed in BYOC will still be accessible to the public, but we're in a transition on how that will be presented. At the end of the school year last year, our 9-12 teachers at the high school level worked on redoing the syllabi, the master syllabi for the course. So as teachers, if we're teaching, two of us are teaching the same class, we'll have the same basic syllabi. However, we'll personalize it with our contact information and some other unique things about our classroom. The course syllabi at the high school level will meet the requirements of the course overview documents. And so they were specifically designed that way. So when our public goes to take a look at oops, I'm so sorry. When our public goes to look at the course overview documents for the high school, this is what they will find. It resembles the course planning guide, has the table of contents, and then for each one linked in here, it's either the course syllabi for, in this case, Intro to Art, and which has all of the same information as the course overview document had in the past. If that one has not yet been revised, there is a BYOC document linked up. So all of the course information will still be accessible to our public as we're working to put it all in a consistent format. Our K-8 courses will have an overview document for each of the core courses. Then our specialist courses will again have the course overview documents. If it has been revised, it will be in the new format. If it has not yet been revised, the BYOC, Bring Your Own Curriculum, document will be linked up so that our public can find those there. These are available and accessible for your review. And at the next meeting of the board, I'll be asking the board to approve our course overview documents for the upcoming school year. We'll keep you updated on the progress to shift those all over to a consistent format, and I would anticipate by January being able to share those revised ones completely.
I think it's really important for you to just call out what you mean by revision. So if you could speak to that, no revisions would come through without going to curriculum committee or the board for approval. When she's saying revision, it's just moving the content over from that to the new.
So it's a formatting revision.
Correct. It's that alignment.
Yep.
What she spoke to a little bit earlier, investigating our curriculum, any refinements like that, that's what's on deck for the year. That all goes through curriculum committee multiple times, then before the board for action. This is just a formatting piece, so I think that is important to clarify.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Or probably a silly question, and you addressed this, the BYOC, the Build Your Own Curriculum. At first, when I looked at that, I thought, well, is that something where the student can just whip together whatever they want? That's not the case, right? The BYOC is really kind of the software platform where this is displayed. I just want to be sure I understand that correctly.
You are absolutely correct. We utilize that software platform to hold our curriculum in the past. And we'll be shifting away from that and just having it accessible directly on the website. The format that we'll move into makes it easier for a parent to find what they're looking for, or any member of our public to actually find what they're looking for.
Thank you. Any other questions? I see one over here. Go ahead.
Maybe more of a comment. Just this personal comment, proud of our curriculum that we offer at the West Bend School District. It's one of the best in Washington County and one of the most diverse even in the state. Proud of what we're offering on not only the high-end college placement courses that students can attend, but the career and technical education is outstanding, best in the area. And we partner with our partnering districts and community colleges in the area. So thank you, Laura, to you and your team for an outstanding education. And I'll say last, it's free of controversial theorists and opinion-based education that we get a lot of questions in. The community should be proud of it all members of the community should be proud of the education that we offer here, and we need to tell, even shout from the rooftops how great of kind of offerings and that you could choose and become career ready, whether you go right into the workforce at age 18 or whether you attend a secondary education. So thanks, Laura and the staff and the teachers that teach our wonderful curriculum.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Our teams did a lot of work this summer as well, and so I appreciate that you recognize that. Thank you.
Great. This will come back to a future meeting, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, which takes us to Academic Performance Summary 2020-2021, and you'll walk us through that item too.
Yes. So I wanted to come before you today just to talk about our STAR proficiency. This year, just to review a little bit of assessment for our students and our assessment reporting. STAR is our universal screener. We use that in district for a lot of different purposes. Teachers use it as they're looking at what their students need and what they've already mastered as far as their grade level standards go and the focuses of their course. We use it when we're looking at opportunities that students may need that are different from the Tier 1. So whether they need Tier 2 or Tier 3 instruction because they are struggling with a particular concept or because they have exceeded the expectations for that particular concept. The STAR Universal Assessment provides some of that overview information that is then used by the schools, the classroom teachers, and then us as a system. In addition, the STAR assessment is a nationally normed assessment. I share that because in the spring of the 1920 school year, we did not take state assessments. That was the spring that we were all closed. We had taken the ACT in spring of 2020. So in the spring of 2020, we took the ACT, but we didn't complete other state assessments. Excuse me. We also had completed the Access, which is our assessment that is given to students who are learning English as their second language. No Forward, no ACT Aspire. So there was no school report card on the 1920 school year. So last fall, we did no presentation of a district report card or our school report cards. This spring, however, we were able to administer all of our state assessments. So everything from Access to ACT, Aspire, and our Forward exam. That information is embargoed. And so as scores have come in, we're not yet able to share them. The data from DPI is still yet to go through the verification process. But so district information is not yet publicly available. I wanted to take a moment to look at our STAR proficiency. I'm going to remind you, and you'll see it throughout, in spring of 2020, we did not do the STAR test either. However, this year we were able to do it 3 times during the course of the school year. So the STAR administration, I kind of talked about this, but we administer in the K-1 level a early literacy assessment for our kindergartners and first grade students. 2nd through 10th grade just take the regular STAR literacy, and STAR math assessment we begin in first grade, and so that is taken in grades 1 through 10. We have a participation goal of having 95% or higher, and that, since we started utilizing STAR, has always been our participation goal. In the fall of 2019, our K-1 proficiency rate, as their students are starting kindergarten and first grade, was 39%. When we took it in fall of 2020, with the fall of 2020, kindergartners and first graders, that proficiency rate was 36%. You can see our test participation rate was close to the 95% goal that we have. STAR early literacy in spring of 2021, so when our students exited this school year, 52% of those students were scoring in the proficient or advanced range at that time.
Do we have the information from the prior year for spring of?
Because we did not test in spring of 2020 because of the school closure.
No, I'm saying the prior year to that.
Yes. I did not put that in this report.
Because that would be helpful to kind of understand where we were before COVID versus where we are now. So
I can
I
bring
guess,
that forward at the next
yeah, I'd like
report.
to see that at the next meeting because I think that's probably a better comparison.
Mhm. The first graders would have moved on to second grade. So half of them would be the same. The kindergartners I'm sorry, did you say fall of 2020 or fall of? Yeah. Fall to spring are the same students, correct. Correct. Same group of kids, correct. For our STAR reading, which was grades 2 through 10, in the fall of 2019, we started at 44% proficient. In fall of 2020, we started the year at 43% proficient and advanced. We did not have full test participation. We did not meet our 95% goal in the fall of 2020. When we look at spring of 2021, we were up to 46% proficient in reading, and our participation rate from fall of 2020 to spring of the same school year has increased to 92% from 84. Our math proficiency rates, again, first through 10th grade, in fall of 2019, we're at 39%, and fall of 2020, students entering West Bend schools were at 33% proficiency. Again, the fall of 2020, the participation rate was 84%. We did not meet that 95% target in fall of 2020.
When you say proficient, you mean?
Proficient or advanced, correct.
I'm sorry, can I interject a question?
Sure,
To
go
put,
ahead.
to put that into context, are there
grade level
categories?
at that.
Does that mean above average, average? Can you put that into context for us?
So when we look at when entering the school year, at the start of the school year, what level of understanding are you expected to have relative to the standards? So if we say, here's the cut score to say you're right on target or you're above, that's, we're saying that 33% of our students were on target at the start of the school year or above that in the fall of 2020. Yeah. So then in the spring of 2020, in the spring of 2021, that 33%, we now have 42% of the students at or above that on-target level. So
In your
next-
opinion, what should our target be for that number? Ideally, if you could have it all your way. Well, not,
Maybe
okay,
100.
maybe 100, okay. But like, what, realistically, what do you think it should be?
I think that we need to increase our percentage, and I think that we should be increasing that to STAR matches is generally a good, solid predictor of our forward test results. And I always think we should be striving for 100% proficient. If we would strike this to get this up, I would I think we have to be active. So I'm saying our cut right now is not 75%, but I'd love to see us at 75% proficient. I would love to see us our report card score as a whole system rising and our growth scores rising. And so I set high goals.
Well, I think 75% is reasonable. I think this is for another time,
Yeah.
but
And probably
yeah.
further discussion at our curriculum committee for looking at that level. Thank you.
All right, any other items on that topic? Do you have additional items, or?
I do not. I do have one quick question.
Sure.
We mentioned here to come back at another board meeting, and my ask would be, do you want me to come back at a future board meeting, or do you want me to wait like soon, or do you want it to come before when the state report card is released?
I guess since I started that one, I guess I would like to see some kind of comprehensive plan that I'm sure I can see the gears are turning on our superintendent, and she's just chomping. I think we would like to see probably, for me, I'd like to see about 3 or 4 years worth of data showing us our proficiency levels before COVID versus where we are now. And then I'd like to see a plan to, I think 75% is a very lofty goal. I would love to see us there, but I'd like to see an attainable goal and something multi-year. So if you determine that a 5% increase is doable, well, then let's shoot for 7. I mean, that's your area of expertise, not mine.
Are the STAR reports from other districts available as well? They're not. Okay, so we can only compare ourselves to the state
national
report
norm.
card?
We can look for, we can talk about the national norms.
Okay.
And that's where based on the national norms, 42% of the students.
So Superintendent Wimmer, your superintendent buddies in the county, they don't share that?
We all do, all the time.
Okay.
So do Laura and her friends. But I think one of the things when you talk about a comprehensive plan, you're looking at one indicator relatively out of context. What we need in alignment with our curriculum, our instructional plan, is a dashboard or what are the metrics, because there's multiple metrics, and which ones are we looking to move the needle on, and how will they have outcome for our students for their learning and their growth. So there's not just the benchmark to hit, but then there's also growth that you're meeting all kids where they're at, because you could have a student who's already hit that benchmark. Well, that doesn't mean I'm not accountable to move that child forward that year. So I think it's really important to have a comprehensive plan. This is just the one slice of finally getting an indicator that we had. I think that would come in the future.
And in the past, you may recall that we reported out student growth, student growth percentage. And so we looked specifically at, were we meeting our growth targets with the STAR data? Since we didn't do it, we typically do student growth spring to spring and look to see, did we meet those growth targets? We didn't do that for this year because of the not doing it in 2020.
And to be perfectly honest, I appreciate seeing this raw number, because we're not trying to sugarcoat anything. I mean, you can present numbers that look nice because you want to look nice, but this, I think, is a much more honest way to present it, and I admire that. So thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Just to add to Nancy's gathering more than just 2 years worth of data, I think I'd be more interested in seeing the fall to spring for each of those, because those, you're not going to come into fall necessarily being above average, but hopefully you've learned by spring the things that you need to learn to be proficient. So I'd like to see those.
And to remind the board, we have had STAR now for 4 years and in the system.
And I would like to add that we've always gotten positive feedback from parents about the STAR reviews because of the nature of the comment section and the ability for the parents to actually understand the results of their students. So I'm a big fan of the STAR assessment.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Laura. Appreciate the presentation. All right. So the next item then is our board meeting calendar. And so future items on our board meeting, we've got a regular board meeting on August 23, and then another regular board meeting on September 13. And then, as Andy Sarno had kind of foreshadowed, we have our 102nd annual meeting on September 27th. So those are the items on our board meeting calendar. All right, and then
Interrupt you for a second.
you sure can.
So the committee meeting, it says next meeting is October 5th, but I thought we were going to have one September 7th. Okay.
September 7th. Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So we, I think, gave our administration friends some items for follow-up at future meetings. Beyond those that we've already talked about, are there any other items that we want to see on future agendas? Otherwise, the superintendent and I will work together on the next agenda. All right. Hearing none, we've reached the end of our planned agenda, so I would move to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Nancy. Motion and second to adjourn. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.